Okay, in this video I'm going to go over the lines in Book 2, 588 through 620, which will complete all the lines that we need to know for Book 2. And embedded within it, I'm going to obviously go over 6 vocabulary words that you will fill out in a quiz on Canvas. And in doing so correctly, you will obviously earn yourself a 100. So, remember that what is currently happening in the story is that Aeneas has come across Helen on his way back to his own home, and in a fit of rage considers killing her, thus justifying to eliminate this source that is the cause of the Trojan War as a whole. But in this moment, then, what is going to happen is that his mother, Venus, is going to come down and prevent him from doing so, letting him know that that would be a horrible idea to murder a woman, regardless of however justified you might think that it is. So, starting in line 588. I was throwing about such things, talia, of course, from talis, talis, tale, a third declension adjective. This is a neuter plural accusative. And I was being carried in my infuriated mind, furiata, of course, being a perfect passive participle. When, and then here, our subject of the word, the cum clause, is the alma parens. My kind parent brought herself, say, is the object of the verb obtulit, which of course comes from pharaoh, feri, tuli, latus, brought herself to me, known, Tom Clara, not so clear, not so obvious, in front of my eyes, and it is herself, widendam, which of course is the gerundive, about to be seen. So, when she appears, she is not going to be a clear, defined image, but more like a hazy image, which is exactly what we'd expect a divine or supernatural being to appear. And so she brought herself about to be seen to me, not so clear in front of my eyes, and she gleamed. Now the word here is fulgeo, fulgere, falsi, falsus. And that is your first vocabulary word that is embedded to gleam. For example, if I have a shiny ring, the ring would be called refulgent. And thus it is obviously from this verb, again, fulgeo, fulgere, falsi, falsus. And she gleamed through the night in the pure light. Pura modifying luce. She, having confessed, confiteor, confiteri, confessissum, and having confessed, the goddess. In other words, implied here a say, having confessed herself as a goddess, having revealed herself as a goddess, essentially is what it means. And qualis, 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 quale is asking the question, what sort of, and what sort of, and quanta, how great, how big. She is accustomed, soleo solere, to be seen, a present passive infinitive, to the heaven dwellers. What this tells us here is that essentially she appears in her pure godlike form, the form that she would normally appear when she would be with other gods and others of those who are going to be supernatural. Remember that we have seen her in the Aeneid, and the part that we did not read in Latin, that usually when gods appear to humans, they put on a human form, but not in this situation, because she probably wants to give an impression upon Aeneas of the authority and the simple instructions that she's going to give to him not to kill Helen, to make sure that he follows through, and so she wants to appear as impressive as possible. So she, having confessed herself a goddess, and what sort of, and how great, how big, she is accustomed to be seen to the heaven dwellers, the Kaili, which is heaven, and Kolis, dwellers. And she held, teneo tenere, the one having been caught, the one having been apprehended. It is a perfect passive participle that we are then substantizing it. The word prehensile means the ability to grab. So for example, the animals that might have a prehensile tail would be like monkeys or geckos. But of course, it is the word that is modifying the understood object, him, Aeneas. With her right hand did she hold the one having been apprehended, having been grabbed, and she added, addere, a ditty, she did add these things, a neuter plural accusative, in super, in addition, with her rosy mouth. Remember the word for mouth is going to be os, oris, and it can also mean face at a time. So, she then says, nate, which is in the vocative. Now remember nate that we see in line 594 is going to be from naskor, naski, natasum, a deponent verb that means to be born. But here, we make it into a noun, substantizing it. It is literally masculine thing, having been born. Son. So, hey, son, quis tantus dolor, what so great grief, what so great pain, riles up, wakes up, excitat, excites, indomitable angers. In other words, why are you so overwhelmed that you are contemplating killing a woman in cold blood? Quid furis. What? As in what reason? Very often quid in real Latin is going to mean simply why, as in what reason do you rage? Or quo of quo nam. Quo is going to mean whither or to what place. The nam on it is merely intensifying it. Or to where has. The reason I'm using the word has as my helping verb is because this is from the verb kedo, kedere, kesi kesus. Please do not confuse kedo, which of course means I go, versus kado, which is of course I fall. This is the go, and thus indeed to go back, recede. Nevertheless, or whither, to where, has a concern of us gone away for you. Us, when she says that here, is in the genitive, a concern of us as in us, the family, your family. Instead of obviously thinking about killing this woman Helen, what you should be doing is thinking about your family. And thus she then goes on with that same line of thinking. She continues, non prius aspicies, if I see, I long ye, future will be, will you not look to see, will you not see, prius, first and foremost, beforehand, where you have left behind Anchises, your parent, tired with age. Now, this linqueris is really relinquo, relinquere, reliqui. It is a perfect subjunctive, such that you see the perfect stem with your perfect subjunctive endings, erim, eris, erit. Now, your second vocab word is going to be this one right here. It is from the noun aitas and aitatis. And it is an age or a generation. And thus an aeternitas is where we get the word eternity. So age, A-G-E, is your second embedded vocabulary word that you should obviously put down. So, will you not look to see? Will you not see, first and foremost, where you have left behind Anchises? Anchises, your parent, tired with age, bringing up the fact that obviously he is old and thus more vulnerable and susceptible to the Greeks and those that are looting and rioting and obviously destroying the city. Nevertheless, we continue. Another question, or indeed whether, as you could have it, indeed it is a, again, indirect question. Will you not look first, where, and nahir? Instead of asking a question directly, it is going to be introducing the indirect question, and your verb here, superret. Now, if it were an indicative, supero, superare, it'd be superat. But since it is superret, it is the subjunctive, because an indirect question requires a subjunctive verb. And whether your spouse Creusa and the boy Ascanius survives, remain. So in other words, will you not look first if whether they obviously have yet been killed by the Greeks. Kirkum, around all of whom, now this all of whom is referring to Creusa, Ascanius, and Anchises the father, around all of whom, undique, on all sides, the Greek battle line, a fifth declension word, akies, akiei, wander. And so therefore, they are all around the house. And et, if not. Ni is really short for nisi. And if my concern, and here we have a present subjunctive. Present subjunctive in a if clause, which remember is referred to as a protasis, is going to then be should. And if my concern should not hold it back, should not resist, already then the flames would have taken a perfect subjunctive. So here, we started out with the present subjunctive, and then in the then clause, we go to a perfect subjunctive. And so, unless my concern should have held it back, the flames already would have brought them or carried them away, and the inimicus ansis, the hostile, the unfriendly sword, hauseret, would have drained or drunk, as it were, as in their blood. So essentially what she is saying here is that the only reason that they have not been gotten by the Greek battle lines and have not been killed is that she, herself, Venus, has inserted herself with protection. And so again, she's saying to him, you need to go see about your family, you need to go see about your individual family members, because if I were not intervening, and I will not probably continue to intervene, the Greeks would have killed them already, instead of sitting here contemplating the murder of poor Helen. Just leave her about her way, and you deal with the things that you should be dealing with. So, continuing on. Your third word of vocabulary embedded is sword. Ansis. Ansis means sword. Many words can mean sword, including that one. Also another word for sword is gladius. And then of course as well by metonymy, remember ferrum, iron. It could also be the sword. So she continues on in line 601. So, not to you, as in a dative of reference, not to you, the hated face. Again, the verb video videre with an N on the front. In video, in videre, in vidi, in visus, can mean to envy or to hate. Here, it is going to be hated, most likely. And facies is a fifth declension word that simply means faith. So, not for you has the hated face of Spartan Helen. Remember, again, Tyndareus is a patronymic referring to Helen by her father, Tyndareus. And Lacanai is a word that means related to Sparta. And so, not for you, the hated face of Spartan Helen, or, where, it's going to mean or. So, que, Q-U-E, as an enclitic attached to a word, like what we see here, means and. Where, as an enclitic, is going to mean or. Or, blameworthy Paris. So, not the hated face, and or not blamed Paris, culpable Paris, not have those two things overturned. Verte, vertere, versi, versus, these resources. Opes, remember, comes from ops, opus, which means wealth or resource. Not to be confused with opus operis, which of course is a work. So, the hated face of Spartan Helen or blameworthy Paris has not overturned these resources. And then we see what she's claiming has. The mercilessness of the gods. And then repeats it, of the gods. The point is, she is saying that it is not Helen that is causing the downfall of Troy and the Trojan War and the destruction therein. It is not even Paris, but what is causing it is the mercilessness, the lack of mercy of the gods, that has done the action, not the face of Helen, and not, and it's or not, blameworthy Paris. Que, and that mercilessness lays low. Sterno, sternere, stravi, stratus. We've seen this before in the verb that was used to indicate killing of the deer. And lays low Troy from its peak. She's bringing up the fact that it is the gods at play. And so therefore, he should not even think of Helen as being the source that he kills, because she's not the one causing the downfall of Troy. What is the intervention of the gods. Now in the next few lines, what she's then going to do is going to give him the god glasses. That is the idea that for a normal, mortal human being, you don't see everything that's out there. Because the gods themselves are invisible. The supernatural is not visible to us. And so what she's going to do is she's going to give him the special glasses, not literally, but figuratively. She's going to take away that fog of human view and let everything then be seen by him. And that's exactly what she says. Aspice, look, check it out. Nanque, for Eripiam. I will rip away. If I see I long e, future will be. Remember long e plus m turns into am. I will whip away the omnium nubum. That whole cloud, the cloud which now obducta, which now having obscured, habitat, makes blurry mortal sights, mortal visions, for you, the one tuenti, a present active participle. Now tuenti comes from tueor, tueri, to assume, and it means to watch over. And so, it is modifying the tibi in the dative case. So again, I will rip away the whole cloud, which now, having obscured, makes hazy, makes blurry the mortal visions. For you, watching over, and cloudy or dewy, we get the word humid from this, kaligat, obscures all around. And so she's saying she's going to rip away that haze, that kind of cloud that all humans are usually experiencing the world vision-wise, because what it does is, again, it makes blurry and it obscures. That cloud which makes blurry the mortal sights and obscures all around. And it's being described here as obviously dewy, misty, if you would like, to where we can't clearly see. And so, by doing this, she's going to be able to show to him how much the gods are truly involved, because they are there. They are helping in the destruction of Troy. It's just that, as a mortal, he's not able to see it, but she is going to reveal it to him. You, nay, time. You don't fear, and see, nisi, num, and nay. All the alis fall away. That's not qua, but aliqua. You don't fear. Remember, that's nothing more than the infinitive with an re chopped off. And so it's not the real way that you make a negative imperative. A negative imperative is usually made with noli or nolite plus the infinitive. But when it's poetry and Virgil, you can bend the rules. And with nay, you can negate the imperative. Don't fear any aliqua orders, things having been ordered of your parent. In other words, don't be afraid to do what I tell to you. No, nor recusa, nor refuse. So, don't fear the orders and don't refuse to obey my commands, my precepts. And I'm just implying the word my. Now, your word here, parere, which comes from pareo, parere, a different word, parere, as opposed to parare. That second one is to prepare. This one is to obey. And that is your fourth vocab word. And it is special, is this verb, because if you obey something, you are literally giving obedience to it. And thus, it is going to have a dative object. And that's why praekeptes is in the dative case. Do not refuse to obey the commands. To obey. That's your next definition. Make it the infinitive. Here. And so now she's going to be pointing out certain spots of the city that he now has this new view, this God view. Here, where you see, and where you see masses having been scattered, in other words, probably rubble of parts of buildings that are being destroyed. So here, where you see masses having been thrown about, having been scattered, and where you see saxa, rocks, neuter, plural accusative, second declension, saxum, saxi, and they are rocks, awulsa, ripped away from awello, awellere, awulsi, awulsus, rocks, having been ripped away from rocks. In other words, the pulling apart of the bricks and stones of buildings. And where you see smoke, undulating, waving, billowing, present active participle, with dust having been mixed in. So she's pointing to a particular spot. It's where you see a bunch of rubble. It's where you see building having been broken apart, stone from stone. Here, where all that you see it, Neptune shakes. Quatio, to shake. Neptune shakes the walls, and he shakes the foundations, having been moved out, or having been moved away, with his great trident. And so what she has done now is allowed him to look over, and when he sees all of the rubble, when he sees all of the destruction, he sees that it's actually the god Neptune doing it. Why was he not able to see this before? Because he did not have that god vision. She has taken away that smoke screen, as it were, and that is your fifth and next definition. Shakes. To shake. Put in the infinitive for quatit. Que. And here, where you saw that stuff, Neptune not only shakes the foundations and walls, and he rips up the totam urbim, the whole city, from its seat. So apparently he's taking his trident and he is destroying buildings, destroying stuff, and obviously creating all the rubble. And for the first time, Aeneas now can see this, and thus, obviously, he is convinced, or is starting to be convinced, to leave the woman Helen alone, because she is not the one at issue. Then she points to another spot to show him another god or goddess that is involved. Over here, in this other location, most savage, very savage Juno first holds the Scaean gates. The Scaean gates are the famous double gates that are of Troy, and they were noted for their great strength and for their great size, and Juno is obviously holding them, in other words, holding them open. So over here, most savage Juno first holds the Scaean gates, and raging, present active participle, she calls. She calls the friendly battle line from the ships. Remember that the Greeks have returned from the island of Tenedos, and it is then that they are pouring in, and it is Juno literally physically there, holding open the gates. Juno, the most savage, the one Akinta. Now remember, this comes from Kingo, Kingere, Kinksi, Kinctus, and it is going to mean to encircle. So she, having been encircled, having been girded with the sword, or with iron. So she's holding an iron sword, holding open the gates, and calling that Greek battle line from the ships and waving them all in. The gods are an active participant in this destruction of Troy, and so therefore it should not be on his mind to kill Helen, because she's not the one truly at issue. At issue are the gods, and he has nothing that he can do to prevent all of them from doing what they are doing. Now, Yam, Tritonian Pallas, Pallas Tritonis, Athena or Minerva as the Roman name would be. Check it out. Minerva has sat upon Sedo or Sedeo, Sedere, Sedi. So now Tritonis Minerva has sat upon the highest citadels. Check it out. She's waving him to obviously look in a new direction. Minerva, Pallas, another name for a youth in her childhood that apparently she by accident killed, and so that's why she is sometimes known as Pallas Minerva, or in Greek, Pallas Athena. She has sat upon those highest citadels. She gleaming, remember, fulgale, fulgere, to gleam, gleaming with the cloud, and she savage with the Gorgon. What this is describing is, one, she gleaming from the cloud or with the cloud, obviously. It's almost as though she is glowing in this mist that surrounds them all. But over here, she has on her breastplate a thing called the Aegis. It is the only thing in the universe that can withstand the thunderbolt of Jupiter. And after Perseus had killed the Gorgon Medusa, he gave the head to her, and she put it on that aegis, on that breastplate. Even dead Medusa stare and gaze can turn things into stone. And that's why she's savage with the Gorgon. If you even look at her, she will turn you into stone, because of on her breastplate does she have the Gorgon Medusa's face. Then finally the coup de grace in the last 3 lines, in which the pater ipse. So starting at 6:15. Now Tritonis Minerva. Check it out. Look. has sat upon the high citadels, gleaming from the cloud and savage with the Gorgon. She is present like the others. And the Father himself, this meaning Jupiter, sufficit, supports the minds for the Greeks. Jupiter is involved. And, que, he supports their favoring, their following strengths. Not the word man. If it is third with a V-I-R, it is from wis, wis, we, wim, we. Vires, virium, and its strength or powers. So he is essentially supporting them and encouraging them. And thus it says it. The Father himself supports the minds for those Greeks, a dative of possession. And he supports their favoring strengths. They are gaining in their enthusiasm. And then the ipse is repeated as an anaphora, because it goes to the various highest levels of the gods themselves. He himself urges on suskitats, the gods. He encourages the other gods to take part in it against Dardanian weapons. And so it is absolute doom for Troy. The deck is stacked against them, because not only are the gods involved, they are encouraged by the top god to be literally involved in the destruction of the city. There is nothing that can save Troy, especially not killing some woman that you happen to be angry at and with blame misplaced. Finally, the last two lines. When she then tells to him, forget about killing this woman, and instead, O masculine thing having been born, son in the vocative, rip away your flight and place, pono, pomere, posui, positus, place an end to your labor. In other words, give up trying to fight. Instead, flee. Rip away your flight. I will be sum esse fui futurus. In the present, sum esse sum. In the imperfect, eramarasarat, eramarasarat. In the future, ero, erisarit. I will be away nowhere. This is what we call litotes. Litotes is the literary device whereupon you confirm something by denying its opposite. And so when you say, I will be absent nowhere, that means I will be present everywhere. I will always be with you. And that's your sixth and final vocab. Nusquam means nowhere. I will be away, I will be absent nowhere. And system, from sisto, sistere, that is the letter E in a third conjugation. And so it is future. And I will set up you, tutum, safe and sound, patrio limine, on the fatherland threshold. Basically, she's saying to him, flee, run away, but it's okay. Wherever you go, I will be with you. I will be absent nowhere, your sixth and final vocab. And I'm going to help you establish the Latin race eventually when you get there. I will set up you, safe and sound, on the fatherland threshold. So I'm going to be there every step of the way. Instead of killing this woman, realize who is really destroying Troy, the gods. There's nothing you can do about it. And obviously, every step of the way in your flight, every step of the way in your escape, I'm going to be there and I'm going to help you. So, hopefully you have watched these videos, earned yourself that free 100 by simply putting down those 6 vocab words, and thus preparing for whenever we have our next assessment over Book 2. Thank you.